Good morning, everyone. This is Rogelyn Dotarot, and I was assigned to discuss about the four hypotheses that outline the natural approach theory. And these are the natural hypothesis, the input hypothesis, the monitor hypothesis, and the effective filter hypothesis. First, we have the natural order hypothesis. So what is the natural order hypothesis? Rogelyn suggested that the acquisition of grammatical structures follows a natural order, which is predictable. It explains that we acquire, not learn, the parts of a language or grammatical structures in a predictable progression. There are some grammatical structures that are acquired early while others acquired late. For example, children learn labels of things to make sense of what they see in their immediate environment and proceeds to action words so that they can express their needs. Similar natural order occurs even in a second language acquisition. This hypothesis suggests that this natural order of acquisition occurs independently of deliberate teaching, and therefore teachers cannot change the order of grammatical teaching sequence. According to this hypothesis, teachers should be aware that certain structures of a language are easier to acquire than others, and therefore language structures should be taught in order that is kaaya-aya to learning. Teachers should start by introducing language concepts that are relatively easy for the learners to acquire, and then use scaffolding to introduce more difficult concepts. So when we say scaffolding, for example, if we were to use scaffolding with learning to read or a reading assignment, you might take about some of the vocabulary words first, then read a chunk of a text, and then discuss what is happening in the story. The key is that you are breaking things down so that kids are better able to learn something new. Second, we have the input hypothesis. So what is input hypothesis? This is an important condition for language to occur is that the acquirer understand via reading or hearing input language that contains structures a bit beyond his or her current level of competence. The input hypothesis is only concerned with acquisition, not in learning. So this hypothesis suggests that the language acquisition occurs when learners receive messages that they can understand, a concept also known as comprehensible input. However, Rogelyn also suggests that this comprehensible input should be one step beyond the learner's current language ability, represented as I plus 1, in order to allow learners to continue to progress with their learning language development. Since not all of the learners can be at the same level of linguistic competence at the same time. This hypothesis highlights the importance of using the target language in the classroom. The goal of any language program is for learners to be able to communicate effectively by providing as much comprehensible input as possible, especially in situations when learners are not exposed to the target language outside of the classroom, so the teacher is able to create a more effective opportunity for language acquisition. Next is the monitor hypothesis. The monitor is a conscious learning process which learners attend to form, figure out rules, and are generally aware of their own process. It makes alteration or correction as they consciously perceive. Rogelyn believes that fluency in second language performance is due to what we have acquired not what we have learned. This hypothesis further explains how acquisition and learning are used. The acquisition system initiates an utterance, and the learning system monitors the utterance to inspect and correct errors. Krashen states that monitoring can make some contribution to the accuracy of an utterance, but its use should be limited. He suggested that the monitor can sometimes act as a barrier, as it forces the learners to slow down and focus more on accuracy as opposed to fluency. Krashen also suggests that there is an individual variation among language learners with regards to monitor use. He distinguishes those learners that use the monitor all the time is called overuse or fluency sufferers. And for those learners that use or who have not learned the monitor appropriately, or those learners who have not learned the use of the monitor appropriately is called optimal use or balance. And those learners who have not learned or who prefer not to use their conscious knowledge is called underused or accuracy sufferers. An evaluation of the person's psychological profile can be helped to determine to what group they belong. Usually, extroverts are underusers, while introverts and perfectionists are overusers, and a lack of self-confidence is frequently related to the overuse of monitor. So, as a teacher, it will always be a challenge to strike a balance between encouraging accuracy and fluency in their students. This balance will depend on numerous variables, including the language level of the students, the context of the language use, and the personal goals of each student. This balance is also known as communicative competency. The last one is the affective filter hypothesis. So, Krashen's views that a number of affective variables play a facilitative but non-causal role in second language acquisition, and these variables include motivation, self-confidence, anxiety, and personal traits. Krashen claims that the learners with high motivation, self-confidence, and a good self-image, a low level of anxiety and extroversion are better equipped for second language acquisition. So, if the learners with a high affective filter, a low self-esteem, and high level of anxiety, it forms a mental block. When the filter is high, it blocks language acquisition. The affective filter is the one obstacle that manifests itself during language acquisition. That is a screen that is influenced by emotional variables that can prevent in learning. This hypothetical filter does not impact acquisition directly but rather prevents input from reaching the language acquisition part of the brain. So in any aspect of education, it is always important to create a safe, welcoming environment in which students can learn. In language education, this may be especially important since in order to take in and produce language, learners need to feel that they are able to make mistakes and take rest. This relates directly to Krashen hypothesis of the affective filter. That's all my report. Thank you for listening, everyone. And now let's proceed to our next reporter, please. And that's